All right. So, let's get to that name. The Rise of Skywalker. I may have had... I don't know if this was like sleep deprivation or if it was a stroke of genius, but I figured it out, kids.
I don't know if I want to know.
All right. So I've heard from different people, Holly Fry on Full of Sith is one of them, that, you know, and we were kind of thinking this too, that maybe Skywalker just means that the Skywalker spirit lives on in all of us, right? We saw this at the end of The Last Jedi, right? Like, and I was thinking about like Spartacus. I Am Spartacus, right? There's this old movie called Spartacus where like I think it's Caesar or somebody is going to come to all these slaves and they'll say, which one of you is talking about slaves revolting? And it's Spartacus, right? Which one of you is Spartacus? We don't know which one of you. And everybody stands forward and says, I am Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus.
And then another person stands forward, I am Spartacus, right? And everybody they're all saying they're Spartacus so that no one knows who Spartacus actually is, right?
Smart.
And it's standing together as Spartacus. So what if all the Force users in the galaxy, or even just all the people who want peace and justice in the galaxy, what if they stand together and say, I am Skywalker, right? And it's the Rise of Skywalker, because everybody is using that myth and legend of Skywalker, and it lives on in all of them, right?
That's a much better way to say it, because I've heard that before, like, one of my friends was talking about, like, how maybe Skywalker is a group. Mm-hmm, but then I was like, maybe... But now when I hear you talk about it in this way, I'm like, understand what he was saying. Well, like, I get it now. I think that might actually be... Yeah.
Maybe. And that's kind of what I thought of at first, but now I'm going to take it further.
What?
And I think I'm going to go to where you were, Anna, where you were just talking about. What is the name of the first Jedi? What if the name of the first Jedi was Jedi? Okay? So, like, let's say it's like, you know, Bob Jedi. Okay?
Bob Jedi.
Right?
Oh, Bob Jedi!
Jedi Bob, the Lego.
Jedi Bob!
The Lego Jedi Bob, right? There's a Lego figure that's called Jedi Bob, and it's just random Jedi, you know.
Yeah.
So what if it's Bob Jedi is the first Jedi, and what if Rey finds out that that's the name of the first Jedi by reading the ancient Jedi texts, and if she finds this out,
they are not.
They were not page turners, but she had C-3PO read them to her. Remember, in the Poe Dameron comic, he was translating the text for her. And what if? So it's an audiobook, right? Even if a book's boring, you can listen to the audiobook and still understand it. So 3PO made it interesting for her. Maybe he even did sound effects like he did on Andor.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
So what could the next version of Jedi be called? Skywalker, right? Not Skywalkers, because we don't say Jedis.
Right.
Skywalker, right?
Yeah.
The Skywalker Order. Okay. So that seems cool and all, and that's just a name. Right? It's just a name change. What's the difference?
Wow, you're going even further?
Oh, yes, I am. It was revealed that the Chiss, that's Thrawn's alien, right? The Chiss had a word for those, and we talked about this in the Canon News segment a while ago. They had a word or phrase for those Force-sensitive among them who could navigate hyperspace via the Force. They could use the Force to say, if we go into hyperspace in this direction, we'll be okay. And now we need to get out of hyperspace and change because we're going to run into a planet. And they can use the Force to do that, right? Vader actually ended up doing this a little bit in the last Thrawn book because he didn't realize he could, but he did because he was told about it by Thrawn. The name that the Chiss had for those Force users was translated roughly to Skywalkers. They were Skywalkers.
Well, what's the name that he had?
Well, it's a Chiss name.
Well, I just want to hear it.
I don't know what it is. It's like, it's one of those Chiss names that I can't pronounce. Now,
what's Thrawn's name?
Is that a coincidence? Mithran Naruodo. Is that? I'm sure I'm mispronouncing it. I've heard it many times. So, is that a coincidence? Right?
No.
Skywalker?
Probably, maybe.
All right.
I don't know.
What if the next evolution of the Force wasn't Force projection, like Luke did, right? But Force transportation.
Like
Skywalking. Okay? So when Yoda dies, he disappears. He becomes a Force ghost, right?
Yes.
Okay, Yoda dies, he disappears, he becomes a Force.
Yes.
He didn't. You have to learn to do that.
Yeah.
Right? We know this because Qui-Gon didn't finish his training. He
taught
didn't.
himself.
Qui-Gon didn't disappear. But Qui-Gon was taught some of it by the Force Priestesses, okay? So
you totally just switched topics. I have no idea what you're going with this.
Oh, I'm going somewhere. Wait. What if you could learn to become a spirit, travel in the Force, and then become physical again? Like, why do you have to die? Why do you have to die to be able to become a Force ghost? Okay?
Oh my god.
Because luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. Speaking of luminous, Del Rey just announced Project Luminous coming in 2020 after The Rise of Skywalker comes out.
My head hurts. I need a break.
Project Luminous coming in 2020 is going to be about the road to Force transportation. First, they're going to start with the story of the Force Priestesses. The Force Priestesses from the Clone Wars are who Qui-Gon met. He met them in the Clone Wars, and that's how he learned about becoming a Force ghost. He didn't finish his training, which is why he didn't disappear, but he still did become a Force ghost, because he taught Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon how to become Force ghosts.
Qui-Gon.
And he finished his training in the afterlife. They finished their training before they died. Okay? So what if Project Luminous is all these stories about learning new Force powers and culminating in...
Now you're switching to this.
No, because this all goes together.
Wait,
it all
Daddy,
fits together. Then,
and when J.J. Abrams said when the host asked Daisy Ridley
keep
if
going.
Rey has any new Force powers, and she says this is a question for J.J. and J.J.'s like, you're right on the line there. That could mean transportation using the Force, like putting, like, I'm sitting here in Minnesota. I could just, with a flick of my, like, with a snap of my finger, I could go over to Colorado.
Yep, anywhere.
Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, basically. So, So, like, you can... Okay, so, so Yoda and Obi-Wan learned from Qui-Gon. Luke learned from, I'm assuming, Obi-Wan and Yoda and Qui-Gon taught him how to become a Force ghost. 'Cause he disappeared, too. The caretakers maybe taught him? I don't know.
Caretakers.
The Jedi texts? I don't know. How did Luke learn to Force project?
Probably.
He basically made himself a Force ghost, but then he died and became an actual Force ghost, right?
Yeah.
So when Luke made himself a Force ghost, he projected a Force ghost version of himself onto Crate, right?
But it looked so good.
And everybody could see him. Not just Force users. Droids could see him. 3PO saw him.
Yeah.
Which tells me that he actually physically manipulated the Force on Crate. Like, light is physical, you know? If you can see something, there's something there.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see a rainbow. You might not be able to touch it, but there's something there. What you're seeing is light refracted through the raindrops, right?
That is a good way of putting it. I understand what you're saying now.
Yeah. So if someone sees Luke, he's there. So Luke has already taken that first step to actual Force transportation. He has transported a part of himself to Crate.
Like his spirit.
That's amazing.
So when we talk about the rise of Skywalker, I think it means literally, like, the culmination of the Skywalker line is going to end in skywalking. Walking through the Force, through the air, to a separate place
Like
without
a wrinkle
actually
in
walking.
time.
Tessering, yes.
Tessering.
Kind of like that. Yep, and actually when I was explaining this to your mom, she's like, oh, that's like a wrinkle in time. Exactly. That's a good way to think of it. So,
Oh my.
yeah.
Did you explain this to my mom?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
So,
I feel bad for her. No, I'm joking.
no, she was like,
You
wow.
got pretty bored.
I
bet.
No, she was interested. I think she was just excited at how
My
excited I
mind
could
is
get.
blown.
So could Luke come back? Right? Because why did he die? from the effort of doing the whole Force Ghost thing? Did he die? He basically sat there and just, I mean, he wasn't super old.
He hadn't used the Force in a while though, and
it
that
took
was
a lot out of him.
That was a big thing for using the Force for the first time in a ton of years.
So
that's
Luke,
a big thing.
Yep. So he died.
So he died.
But he didn't die.
But
he became a Force Ghost. No, he didn't. He became a Force Ghost. He basically folded himself into the Force.
You're in the Force. When you die, and when a Jedi dies, they become one with the Force.
Yes. What is stopping Luke from becoming out of the Force? And what if he
Nothing.
Nothing, right? What if he did that? What if he's the first person, the first Jedi, the first Force user to come back? If his molecules, all of his body folded themselves into the Force, could they fold themselves back out of the Force?
What if the Emperor could fold himself back out?
What if the Emperor could do that too?
That's how he was talking.
What if what's that?
That's how he was talking.
Maybe. I mean, maybe he wasn't talking as a Force Ghost. Maybe he actually was there. Okay, so I don't really want them to bring Luke back.
Me neither.
And I don't think they will, but I think that he could do it if he wanted to, maybe, but he doesn't have anything to do it for. The 1,000 generations live in Rey now. But I think he could think to himself, like, as a Force Ghost, I think the Emperor could. And maybe the Emperor does. And Rey's like, how did he do that? And Luke says, actually, I could do that right now if I wanted to, too.
And she tries to get him back, but he won't.
But I don't want to. It's not my fight anymore. It's your fight. But guess what? You can do this. And then she's like, oh, I can do this. And like Rey does, I'm going to do this to kick some butt. I'm going to use this in a fight. Kylo's going to come after me, and I'm going to disappear and reappear behind them. I mean, what? I don't know.
Basically, what you're saying, for transportation, what you're saying for transportation is to become one with the Force, basically die, and then refold yourself back into the crude matter world.
Yeah. Because we're luminous beings. Why couldn't she do that? She'll be the first one to do it. Well, I guess the Emperor would be the first one because he did. He and Plagueis were trying to find a way to cheat death. Right? Maybe that's how they do it.
That is.
Maybe it's a dark side power. Maybe it doesn't matter what kind of power it is. Rey uses it for good.
Maybe anyone who has the Force can do it. Maybe everyone can do it if they have the right training.
And they call themselves Skywalkers because they did it. That it's Skywalking. And the Emperor is a Skywalker, and Rey's a Skywalker, and she trains a whole new generation of Skywalkers. Or a new generation of Skywalker.
The Rise of Skywalker.
The Rise of Skywalker.
Rey
Skywalker.
Rey Skywalker. Rey the Skywalker.
Uh-huh.
Oh my.
What do you think?
That's awesome.
A+?
A+.
A+.
For blowing my mind. It might not be right, but...
All right.
A lot of stuff points to it. Now let's get to those interviews.
So we got... Yeah, let's listen.